And away we go. Welcome to Crypto University. My name's Adam, and today we're talking about what everyone misunderstands about crypto. Between the radicals and fanatics and dogmatism, there is actually stuff to talk about and consider. And I think that we can take a more scientific approach to philosophizing about the space. There is a phenomenon to be explained, which is the following phenomenon. This is the Bitcoin rainbow chart. This is the price action of Bitcoin on a logarithmic scale. So this is approximately 2011, 2012, all the way up until the current day. So almost 2025 at the time of creation. We can also talk about this phenomenon a different way. We can do kind of price action. This is from investopedia.com, as well as the higher lows and higher highs that Bitcoin has set over the past approximately 15 years. So around the 2010 era, we had a value of $0 and we went up to a high of 30 cents. Then around the 2012 era, more or less, we went up from $5 to $1,000. 2016, around that time, so a little bit earlier, we went from 200 all the way up until the 2017 high of $20,000 USD. Then we went on to around the 2021 era, where we had started at the 6.6K level and went up to $69,000 per Bitcoin. And now the current era, which kind of started in 2022 with the low of 16K, and we are off to who the hell knows where. So I'm proposing we take a scientific approach, and what I will say is that science is a systematic approach in understanding the natural world, and science doesn't provide definitive truths, even though I think a lot of people misappropriate science for that reason. It actually just positions our propositions about the world on a spectrum of likelihood, and so maybe things are like impossible or extremely unlikely, fairly unlikely, possible, probable, extremely likely. You can kind of, modify the spectrum as you will. The idea is that the propositions that science makes overall is not definitive, and we could always change our scientific paradigm and learn a more deeper truth later, or fix ones that we previously had held. So scientific theories can both at the same time, map onto the world extremely well, be extremely useful, explain things, have a lot of utility, and yet also be known to be incomplete or factually untrue. For example, Newtonian physics is a great example of that. What is a scientific theory? A scientific theory is a well-substantiated explanation of an aspect of the natural world that can incorporate laws, hypotheses, and facts. A theory not only explains known facts, it also allows scientists to make predictions. This is going to be key for us as well. Known facts and predictions. We'll come back to that. Scientific theories are testable. New evidence should be compatible with a theory. If it isn't, the theory is refined or rejected. The longer the central elements of a theory hold, that is, the more observations it predicts, the more tests it passes, the more facts it explains, the stronger the theory is become. So the community generally coalesces around that theory until eventually, at some point in time, our understanding of the natural world deepens, our data widens, the depth and breadth of the data widens, and we propose something else or overrule our previous assumptions. This is going someplace. So scientific method is simple. You basically have a theory. You use a theory to make a prediction. You make a prediction and you design tests around that prediction. You then run an experiment using the test that you just created. You receive an observation from the experiment that you did, and then you help refine the theory. And so on and so on. Again, this is a cyclical pattern because science doesn't propose that something is a one and done, true and forever true. Even the nature of the universe. I think the Webb telescope right now is actually potentially showing us that some of our thoughts about how the most grand scale things started are, potentially different from what we had imagined. The standard unscientific theory of crypto. So this is what I'm seeing right now. Theory: Bitcoin is functionally useless and its true value is zero. Prediction: Bitcoin will either crash to zero or it will slowly deflate to zero because it should be zero. Experiment: the BTC network is running, so we can just watch the price action of that over time. We're continually running an experiment to see whether or not Bitcoin will be zero. An observation: over the past 15 years, Bitcoin has been setting higher lows and higher highs, trending in the opposite direction of zero. So that observation should make you refine your theory, but this is not what's been happening. So the standard unscientific theory of crypto, we have an error here. So that is that the observations we are receiving are going in the opposite direction of the proposed theory that many people have. And furthermore, the prediction that we have is not specified well enough to allow us to falsify it. So we will go into that shortly. Okay. Bitcoin is rising in value over time compared to every other asset, currency, and commodity, including real estate, stocks, gold, USD, oil, etc. That's kind of the error. Our data is not showing, not supporting the theory. It's not substantiating it. And the other thing is Bitcoin keeps crashing 80% of its value only to eventually rise like some sort of phoenix to new highs. One would assume that if something is truly useless, then 80% crashes would solidify that fact among the masses. At the very least, we would expect the asset to never recover from its former scam glory. So issue number 1, falsifiability. We go something like this. In the year 2010, the claim is that Bitcoin will go to zero, and in 2010 it has not, in 2011 it has not, in 2012 it has not, and so on and so on and so on until 2024 when, guess what, it has not. And the response from the crypto skeptics, and specifically the ones who say that its natural value is zero, Jamie Dimon would be one of them, I think Warren Buffett is another one, and so on and so on. There's a massive list of these people. 2010, well, eventually it will. 2011, well, eventually it will. 2012, eventually it will. So just wait long enough. The data hasn't come in yet. So the result is that these people are basically saying the assertion that Bitcoin will go to zero is true, irrespective of any observations. If it hasn't gone to zero yet, then you simply haven't waited long enough. It matters not what happens in the world. I know this to be immutably true. Hopefully we can see why this is a troubling theory, and if we were to take it as a scientific theory, we would have to heavily reject it. All right, so my response would be like, I can't prove to you that Bitcoin won't eventually go to zero given infinite time. Infinite time is a very long time indeed. All I can say is that given the current data that we have, limited though it may be, Bitcoin is doing the exact opposite of what we would expect it to be doing under your theory. It's rising in value over time. This needs to be explained. Issue 2, confirmation bias. Stating the same claim over and over again, irrespective of incompatible observational data, indicates dogmatism and an inability to incorporate conflicting data into one's theory. Okay, so that looks exactly like this, very similar to what I was saying before. Lots of people are greedy and dumb, and it will crash to zero. They said that over here in 2014. They said it over here in 2018. And by the way, they're saying it, these voices are loudest during the mania when it's about to crash, and they correctly are saying it's about to crash. But their prediction that it will go to zero never comes to fruition. In fact, this is not zero. This is also not zero. This is a higher not zero. We keep getting not zeros, and we keep getting higher not zeros. Issue 3, parsimony. Bitcoin is a scam like Tulip Mania, we've all heard this before probably, or the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s. Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme like the Bernie Madoff investment scandal. But is it though? This seems to be a false analogy. There have been many Ponzi schemes in history, and after that they are outed and collapsed, they rarely come back. Bitcoin has survived many crashes. So if it is a Ponzi scheme, it's a Ponzi scheme that's crashed epically in the news media multiple times. Tulip Mania and the dot-com bubbles lasted a few years and never came back. They were one and done. Bitcoin is markedly different in this regard. It seems to be notably different. The response, well, you don't understand. Bitcoin is a super scam. It's a new classification of scam. It's the greatest scam the world has ever seen. It's a new beast. We haven't seen this before. Okay, I see. So instead of adjusting your premises or your conclusions based on current data, you would rather create a new category of scam and place Bitcoin into it. And I wonder why you're so confident in classifying Bitcoin as a scam when it breaks all known scam classifications and clearly requires a new subcategory of super scam, a new subcategory of scam genre just so that you can keep it in there. You're saying, I know it's a super scam, even though this is the first super scam I've ever seen. And so your conviction in this proposition seems odd given the admission that this is the first one you've ever seen. The first super scam that even though it's crashed, 3 times, massively, infamously, all over the news, it still comes back over and over again. And my point is not that Bitcoin is our savior in this talk. My point is that if we look critically at what's being said, the critics are failing to explain the observational data that we are seeing. And so their theory is unscientific. And as a result, I would say personally, unscientific theories can be disregarded because they are not They are not beholden to any facts about the world, so I don't care about them, especially in this regard. So on the issue of parsimony, at some point blues and rock music led to metal music. Although the exact transition point can be hard to trace, the distinction between the genres is often very, very clear. At some point, it becomes so onerous to pigeonhole Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden into blues and rock, and consequently new categories are made to accommodate these distinct differences in music. So perhaps at some point, if Bitcoin is not fitting into the scam category with all of their existing scams, skeptics ought to try placing another potentially new non-scam category. And I've given you a nice image of this, a nice trolley image. These are all the things in the known universe. These are all scams, not to scale, mind you. And this is Bitcoin, which key is not within the scam category. This is a possibility to explain what we're seeing. So the original theory, again, is a sufficient number of dumb and greedy people can sustain irrational price action because they are dumb and greedy. Bitcoin provides no value, and consequently, we're kind of assuming the conclusion by saying that inside the premises. Bitcoin is worthless because it has no value. And why do people still value it even though it has no value? Because they're dumb and greedy. And so the prediction is Bitcoin will crash to zero. So obviously we're not seeing that. So to modify this theory, we can say the following. We can modify the theory in at least two ways. One is, again, there's a sufficient number of dumb and greedy people that can sustain irrational price values. Bitcoin provides no value, and Bitcoin is a new category of scam such that its value going up doesn't disprove B. So B is true irrespective of observational data. Therefore, because the premise assumes the conclusion and there's no way that it can be false, Bitcoin is worthless, and so Bitcoin will crash to zero. There might be other ways of tweaking this, but that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. Here's another proposition that I have. Why don't you modify it as this? I will let you keep your dumb and stupid and greedy masses, because there definitely are. Every cryptomania that we have includes a massive amount of people who are getting greedy, who are speculating, who are not thinking properly, who are in it just to make money without actually appreciating what they're investing in whatsoever, or gambling in, as I like to say, speculating in. I think it's just gambling. So look, let's go. A sufficient number of people are dumb and greedy and can sustain price irrationally, but also we're not going to assume number B. And so our conclusion is that Bitcoin may be valuable, and also at the same time, dumb, greedy people continually pump its price to unsustainable levels. That helps explain. As for the prediction, I don't know. This is epistemic modesty. Right, so one of the aforementioned theories is dogmatic, falsifiable, and resistant to data. The other theory is epistemologically modest and in line with scientific inquiry. Can you guess which one of the theories I'm talking about? I won't say it here. So I'm going to jump into a small story here. It's an analogy that I just created, and hopefully this will make it clear where we are at in the crypto debate with the skeptics and the believers. Again, this talk is not to say that you should be a skeptic or you should be a believer necessarily. It is to define the positions of these different groups. I think there's idiots on both sides, but the skeptics are really, really failing to adjust their theory to help explain what Bitcoin is doing as we go forward. Here we go. Say I have a glass in my hand and we're at a pub, and we both want to know if it's fragile, or somehow we're interested in the fragility of this glass. We defined fragility as follows. Very, very odd thing for us to do here. We're going to say if the glass drops from above 50 centimeters and breaks, it's fragile. Oh, I should say at 50 centimeters or higher, not above, because later I mentioned 50. Okay. Computer programming, off by one error. If it doesn't break, it is resilient. We take turns probing the glass. We feel its contours with our fingers. We hold it up to the light. We tap on it with our fingers, and then we make our predictions. And I say it's definitely a fragile glass, and you counter and say I think it's resilient. After spending hours debating this point back and forth, lecturing each other, bringing to bear all our past experiences with glasses to defend our stances, we conclude that there's only one definitive way to resolve this. We must drop the glass from above 50 centimeters. Having become aware of and quite committed to our inquiry, many have begun placing bets. Thousands of dollars are on the line. The entire pub goes silent. We collectively hold our breaths in anticipation. Slowly, I inch the glass off the table. The glass hurtles toward the ground. It makes impact. An audible gasp is heard. The glass survives impact with no visible damage. Not so fast, I declare. That could have been luck. It could have been a 1 in a million observation we just saw. I demand that we redo the test to definitively settle this matter. Although the pub patrons yell in agreement and in dismay, After much deliberation, you yield. Fine. Do the test again. It's a resilient glass. It will survive. Money exchanges hands once again. We revert back to our initial state. The pub goes quiet. I place the glass back on the table and I ask you to drop it. This time, you oblige, committing the glass to its second free fall of the night. It hits the floor. It survives unscathed. A tremendous roar echoes throughout the pub. Winners are flexing on the losers, who undeniably took a fat L. A look of dejection and dismay dawns the visage of those who betted fragile. You see the disbelief in my eyes and come over to shake my hand. It has been a long night. Not so fast, I defiantly announce. But we dropped it twice and it didn't break, you yell in disbelief. Yes, we dropped it twice from 50 centimeters or above. But we didn't specify how many times it needs to drop before we can be 100% certain that it's not fragile. You look at me with a mixture of pity and disgust. You clench your fist, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. You rein in your anger. After a long moment, you reply, tell me how many times you will consider the glass to be resilient. How many tests you need to consider the glass resilient and not fragile? I reply, well, I don't know. We should keep testing. If it cracks during one of the tests, we'll be able to confirm that it isn't indestructible. Indestructible? We never said we were testing for indestructibility. We have been testing for fragility and has passed the test, meaning that it's not fragile. You're changing the nature of what we're testing. I have done nothing of the sort. We were always testing for indestructibility at a drop of at or above 50 centimeters. In the case that the glass is truly indestructible, we'll never be fully certain of it without dropping it indefinitely. So we must keep dropping it. And if it breaks during one of those tests, then there will be no doubt that the glass is not indestructible, and I'll have won the bet. That sounds reasonable and fair to me. I offer my hand as a gesture of goodwill. With our friendship in tatters, you turn on your heel in disgust, grab your jacket, and make your way out of the bar. You leave me with the bill. That's my analogy for the state of our crypto conversation right now. We are testing something. There have been proposed propositions, there are theories, there's observational data coming in, and there's people who are absolutely resilient to that data and are not updating their theories whatsoever. And I find it dismay. I think there's lots of things to say about crypto. There's lots of scams. There's lots of ugliness. There's lots to say in the negative. But I will also say there's a phenomenon that's happening with the price action that has not been sufficiently explained by nearly everyone. And quite frankly, I'm appalled and disgusted by it. And the lack of critical thinking on both sides is jarring. Anyways, that's it from Crypto Uni. My name's Adam. Thanks for joining me, and take care.